So this week's podcast, you're going to meet Chris Grubb again, which you might remember, who's been one of the other podcasts and is a big member of the Lovefly community, but also his friend John Wenning, who they've got a great story. There are a couple of moments in the podcast that might make you a bit like uneasy, but we're talking about a very particular type of flying. So please stay with it because there's some good messages at the end, and I hope you enjoyed this. All right, cheers. So this week's podcast, we welcome Christopher Grubb and John Wenning, and the great story. This actually came from Chris Grubb, who some of you will know from the Lovefly community, from the Facebook, but also from been on the podcast before. And this looked really interesting. So thank you, chaps, for arranging this. I think when you so we're having a little pre-chat, and as John was explaining what exactly he does, I think once we get into that, it's going to be very interesting. But Chris, welcome back, mate. Nice to see you.
Thank you for inviting us again.
Yeah.
Part two.
Yeah, part two. So Chris, you remember been on the podcast before a couple of times, but also came to the Manchester face-to-face course. I think you came on the first one we ran. That's right.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. So Chris, tell us your story. Bring in John. Tell us how you met, and all the background, and I'll shut up, basically.
Yeah. Well, Lovefly helped me to go to Dominican Republic to celebrate my 25th wedding anniversary with my wife Claire, and I met this young gentleman by the pool drinking beer, and we were talking rugby league and American football, and I found out that he was a pilot and he built homemade airplanes, which really I was at awe with, because I was at one side of the spectrum, being a little bit fearful of flying, and this guy built airplanes and took them off and tested them and landed them. So it blew my mind, really, and I was so interested in everything he was telling me.
Yeah.
And the whole package, we've ended up, I've gone to see John in Wisconsin, Appleton, and went to a big air show, biggest in the world. And we spent 2 weeks there, and he came to us this year to England, and I showed him all around Yorkshire. So what Lovefly did was create a really good, strong friendship bond that will last forever. And on top of that as well, I've got into flight simulator, and I've flown 200 hours with John, and he's taught me how to fly small airplanes. It's over like maybe 100 nights we've flown over the last 2 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'd have to look in my notebook here to see when we started, but over a year. Yeah.
So you're literally going on at the same time?
Yeah.
Like on a call like this, or do you do it through the system? How does it work?
It's through Messenger.
All right.
And we start at 7 o'clock my time, 1 p.m. John's time. We say hello, good afternoon, and then we say, John does a lot of the flight planning, but he's been teaching me how to do it as well. So we've flown all around the world, Australia, Europe, America. He's taught me how to do pre-checks, taxiing checks, takeoff checks, cruise, all the instruments, on and on and on. And that knowledge package that I really wanted to know about really helped me, in aviation and becoming a bit of a geek, as they say.
Well, you were a dork before you were a geek.
I don't mind. I really love it. And I know a lot of people in Lovefly are getting into it as well.
But it becomes a thing of fascination, doesn't it? Like if you're something you're nervous about, then you go towards it. The more you find out, the more you become curious, and it kind of feeds itself, doesn't it? So, we're going to get to John in a minute, right? Okay, but Chris, you just sound like you're not at all nervous at all now. You're flying these things pretty much in your head.
Well, after Dominican Republic, I flew to America, Chicago, and then we went to John's house, and John surprised me with booking a flying lesson in Wisconsin in a Cessna 152, and he was there with my wife watching me take off and land, and I flew around his area, and it was such a dream, and I loved everything about it. Yeah, I am getting there. I managed to go to Amsterdam with my friend to watch rugby league. My rugby team played there, which I would never have dreamed of.
Yeah.
And we've got Australia in March, our big flight to Australia. So I'm going to meet family that I've never met before. And this is all part of Lovefly and John and the community helping.
Well, it's praised, credit to you, because, those of me who have listened to Chris's podcast before may remember, I can't remember all the details, it was a while ago, but, I remember you deliberately managed your career in the army to avoid flying, and this is a life-threatening situation, the army, and you're doing that, but not getting on aircraft, and it's crazy, isn't it, when you think you put the two together,
The first 12 years, I did go onto the airplane, but I was like taking pills, drinking alcohol, which I shouldn't have. And then I ended up going into the maritime regiment, going through Gale Force Wind, Gale Force 8, sea state, and thinking it was all right. Rather than
being on an aeroplane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
But John didn't know much of this. I only just
No, I didn't. I'm listening with fascination. I didn't know that you had that much of a challenge about flying, to be honest. I probably wouldn't have scheduled the flying lesson had I known that without checking with you first.
But it sounds like it was a good idea. It's
He did wonderfully. He was, as he described it later, he was nervous, but I wanted to have the experience, since he was flying on the simulator, of what it's like to have, have the real thing in your hands.
And do you feel like it prepared you? Do you feel like it gave you an advantage when you came to actually flying a real one?
Well, I spoke to the instructor after I saw him about 2 weeks later, after Chris and Claire had returned home. And he said, "Are you sure that guy didn't fly before?" And I said, "Only on the simulator." He said, "Oh, okay." Because Chris knew enough about the instrument panel, the basic concepts of aerodynamics that you need to know. Of course, he didn't have the immediate feel of the wheel, if you will.
Yeah.
But nobody does. That just takes a little while. And he was not allowing what I've just discovered apparently is a bit of a deep-rooted fear to inhibit his ability to learn a new skill.
Yeah.
And the flight simulator, it's so in depth, and it's so real as well. Sometimes you feel like you're up there when you fly.
Well, let's not talk about it. I'll show you the screen here. Tell me when it's
Yeah, we got it. We can see it.
okay. All right. So there you are, sitting on the runway, and I'll take you into the cockpit. There you are in the cockpit now.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Because that Lovefly simulators.
And here we go.
Cool.
Yeah. Here we go. Can you see it well enough?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Now you're not getting the sound because I got my ear. I'll take my ear plugs out of here. Right now we're accelerating at about 70 or 80 miles an hour. That's when you start pulling back on the yoke a little bit and lifting off, so you can see what we're doing. Now I'm going to take the wheels up, because this is see the wheels on that plane? Okay, now back in here. And this is a takeoff on the runway I learned to fly on here in Appleton. That was I've been on that runway 1,000 times.
Those graphics are mad, aren't they?
And you can look out to the left side. There's Lake Winnebago. If you ever look on a map of Wisconsin, that's a lake that's 40 miles long. Look out the right side. You go outside. You can look down. You can look at the airplane from the head. That's the airport and the runway we just took off. So, and here are the instruments that we are flying and using. Oops, sorry.
Feels like it gives you exposure therapy as well, because you're up there. If people are a bit funny with heights and stuff like that.
And as Chris has said, he's got 200 hours under his belt. On the simulator now, I have about 500. I had about almost 1,000 hours of general aviation flying, but in my career, because I was a weekend flyer. I was not a professional by any means. And when the kids were little, you had to rent an airplane and my kids like to eat, so I had to be sensible about how often I could rent an airplane and go flying. I'm gonna put it on pause. I'm gonna put it on pause now, so we don't worry.
That's amazing. Absolutely. I mean,
It truly is amazing, Paul,
Isn't it?
because I started with the Microsoft Flight Simulator years ago. I think it came out the first about 1982, when it was like, it looked like, I don't know if you recall that old game Pong,
yeah.
with the ball bouncing.
Yeah.
It was that basic. It was that, compared to this is just unreal. I can, let's see, I better back off the throttle a little bit. Okay. So, okay. Well, anyway, that's what we do. And what happens is, in the game, in the Microsoft Flight Simulator, Chris and I join up at a designated time that as he expressed. And that means that I can see his airplane. If he were flying right now, he could fly next to me and we'd see each other on that screen. We can't talk to each other. That's where our Facebook Messenger comes in. We do the verbal part between us is exactly what I just done with you, Paul.
Very cool.
Oh, it's
That's what you can see, Paul. What you say? I can say.
Yeah. Sorry, I mean, what a great way to. I mean, I haven't seen it as good as that. I had one a while back, and it wasn't as good as that. But then also, I didn't have the really big screens and stuff. I had a decent sized screen, but it wasn't as good as what I've just seen. The graphics were still good on the one I had, but that's just ridiculous, isn't it?
It is absolutely. So right now, I just brought the screen up close. There's the instrument panel that we're using, and what I'm going to do in a moment here is tell it to fly on its own. Turn the autopilot on.
Yeah.
Turn on the nav. I've got to turn the heading on here a little bit.
So, as for those who are listening on the podcast, that's watching, John's sort of brought up on the screen here the actual flight instruments, and you can see everything. It literally is like being.
Now we're just going to look at this. What I've done is I've just told it to fly on the autopilot at 2,000 feet. So I need to tell it to climb up to that level. So there we go. So it should, unless I'm in my nervous state right now, I've done something that I shouldn't have. But okay, so we'll go back. We'll go back to the other screen, and you'll see now in a moment. You'll see the airplane, because I've got it on pause. You'll see the airplane do its own thing here.
Yeah, you can have live weather, and point to note, when you first buy it, there's basic training. So you go through doing a pattern, takeoff, landing, cruise. There's all sorts of levels as well. Level 1, takeoff, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you start right from fresh.
See, I'm not flying it now, Paul. I just set up the autopilot and told it what I wanted it to do, and it's doing it. We're flying. If you look over here, we're flying at 143 miles an hour right now, and we're flying at an altitude of 3,690 feet.
So for those listening, not watching, there's John's got like a surround screen. You can see, got the maps on one side, got the aircraft from like an aerial view looking at it. I'm doing audio description, see, for the people that just a podcast.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. Right, can you pause it? So let's find out about the man behind the machine. That's you, John. I understand you.
It's Bill Gates.
Well, yeah, of course. Well, he's not available, so we'll talk to you instead.
I'll step in for Bill.
Yeah, nice. So you tell us about your background, how you got into all this.
Well, I'm now 76, so you're seeing me in the twilight of my career here. But as I mentioned, when I was a young man, my father owned a Texaco gas station and did mechanical repair and stuff. And that's what brought us to Wisconsin. He had to take new employment. Wisconsin is north central United States. It's cold up here. Where I was born was Cincinnati, a little warmer, middle of the country. And I was educated here in Appleton, if you look on a Wisconsin map. And growing up, I always had an interest in aviation. My mother's two older brothers flew in the Second World War. My the oldest brother, Gus, flew P-51s, probably keeping an eye on you Brits in Burma, because he was flying there, and I understand he did a lot of escort work, going over the hump or whatever that they called it. My mother had those two older brothers. The middle brother really didn't fly because the war ended while he was training in P-38s.
Yeah.
And so as a young man, I talked to them from time to time, built model airplanes, but recognized that, frankly, neither of my parents thought that was a very good idea for me to go out to, and get into aviation. I'm not sure why, but so I went to college and played football in college. I wasn't always this short and stout, and the bottom line is, I graduated and went to law school. So I just 3 or 4 years ago, it was 50 years of practicing law. I haven't been active the last 2 years of that. It was really 48 years, but they send you a little plaque if you live long enough to make 50. They give you a plaque.
Well worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. But during that time,
Now let's stay alive.
there you go. So during that time, because I happened to end up in this locale, the Experimental Aircraft Association, for your guests, EEA.org, is a well-known organization in the United States, and they started promoting home-built. It's like a people of similar interests. Now they branched out into just about everything you can imagine aviation related now, but it was basically started by people who wanted to build their own airplanes, which sounds a little crazy and very dangerous. The EAA organization and its original founder, Paul Pobresny, worked very closely with our Federal Aviation Administration, and got permission to have a properly built, home-built aircraft registered as a licensed aircraft. So the 3 airplanes that I have built in my lifetime were all eventually registered and were legal to fly a passenger. Well, I never built anything that had more than 2 seats, and I never used it to. I more often than not didn't fly other people, just because I was a hobby flyer. It would be Saturday morning, and frankly, I didn't have enough crazy friends that were willing to jump into an airplane that they knew I built, because they saw the rec room that I built and decided nothing was square and nothing. So anyway, so the bottom line was, the EAA was instrumental. If 51% or more of the home-built aircraft is built by an amateur, not a professional, and you go through the necessary steps during the process to have people inspect it, and it's finally inspected by an FAA designated inspector, so that he gives you an airworthiness certificate, you can then have that airplane registered with in our country, an N number. What's your number? What do your airplane numbers start with, Chris? I've forgotten.
Golf, isn't it?
You know what I'm talking about. On the side of the airplane.
Yeah.
In the States, in the US, it's N. So, for example, the first airplane that I flew, I didn't build. It was a Piper Cherokee. It was N5551 Foxtrot. But it was legal to take a passenger in the one you built if you met all of those requirements. So I just had a bug after about 400 hours of flying in a rental airplane. Paul, what I found was that when you go out on a weekend and rent an airplane, you don't know what cowboy flew it the last time, and he's not not highly motivated to go in and tell him that he had a couple of hard landings. He's happy to go in, turn the keys back in, and get out of Dodge. And I found a couple of times when I taxied out and was checking everything in my pre-flight, things weren't right, and nobody reported. So frankly, I realized that there was a glitch in the system that wasn't real safe. Now, I don't want to make a big deal out of that, because anybody that's going to rent you an airplane, they're trying to take care of those aircraft. But I thought, gee, wouldn't it be neat if I would use this wonderful organization and start to build one? Also, if I flew one that I built, it wouldn't cost so much money. And as I mentioned, my kids like to eat, and my wife wasn't crazy about me going out and dropping a couple of $100 every weekend in an airplane. And frankly, I couldn't afford it. So on one of the summers that I went to EAA, they have the convention every year, a great big week. It's the biggest aviation, private aviation thing in the world. For that week, it's the busiest airport in the world, Little Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And so you can go down there, and the organization puts on seminars. You want to know how to cover a wing, that you can sign up for a seminar and get together with whatever other guys signed up, and you'll cover cover a wing for a couple of days here. Volkswagen engine. I put a Volkswagen engine on my first airplane. I didn't know anything about Volkswagen engines, and you go there, you can sign up for things, and therefore you learn. It was eating an elephant. Building an airplane sounds technically challenging.
It does.
It's not. The first thing I found was a safety thing is the FAA will look, and many companies were starting to make kits for different kinds of airplanes. So the first thing you do if you're interested in building one, you find out whether the kit that you're interested in is on the FAA approved list.
Right.
And the reason you do that is not only because of the safety factor, because the FAA is not going to guarantee that your kit is properly designed. But what they want to know is if you put all those pieces together at the end of the day, and you certainly want to know that at the end of the day, it will qualify for 51% rule. You don't want to go to all that work and then find out they'll say, oh, no. You even though you're completely an amateur and you built it, there's not enough things in here that you put together. The wings might be pre-assembled or something, that cuts down the true 51%, because the way the EAA managed to convince the the FAA into approving it was that it was an educational process and recreational. And so if as long as it was done with education in mind and safety in mind, we'll approve it.
I didn't even know you could do this. I have to say, this is a complete.
Yeah.
I just didn't know this was possible.
But naturally, there I was, a lawyer by trade, and would you climb into an airplane built by a lawyer? I mean, I don't think I would right out of the chute. I mean, because I've practiced law for 50 years and I know how crazy those guys are. So I'm saying that the bottom line is, there are so many steps in the process if you do it responsibly, that by the end of the day, you end up with an airplane that is absolutely safe.
Yeah.
Now, the first thing I hear from people is, well, what about John Denver? John Denver was killed, the singer. I don't know if you guys know.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. Wasn't he killed in a home built? And somebody said there was something about that home built that was, when you're a home builder, you're able to build the airplane with features that may be in the plans or may deviate. Now, remember, at the end of the day, when you're all done with that process, the FAA designated inspector has to come and look at your airplane, and he has to decide whether he's going to give you an airworthiness certificate so that you can fly it. If you don't get the airworthiness certificate, you can't legally fly it. Now, you and I know that there are probably some cowboys out there that would finish it and go fly it anyway, even if they flunked. But most of those guys end up in the obituaries because the FAA is not going to. They're not motivated to not approve you. They want you to be successful. And so they look at it carefully. So, for example, during my my building process, I took photos and videos of everything that I could while I was building them. And the reason I did that was that some assemblies in the airplane are covered up, and you don't want to uncover them. You'd have to tear your airplane back apart. So, for example, some of the control things that go inside the wing, once you cover the wing, you have access panels to be able to look at the important stuff. But the inspector comes along, and if he looks at something that says, I'm not, John, I'm really not in love with the way you did this, that, or the other thing, I could show him pictures or videos. And there's one other step that the EAA provides for you. You can call them up and schedule an inspection. They've got experts there that the FAA pre-approved, and they will come up and look at your work, so that when you finally come to the end of the process and you call the FAA guy, you can show him your log, your building log, and show that Joe Blow from the EAA came along at this stage and inspected it. So if you want to call him up and talk to him about what he looked at,
Yeah.
you can do that. So those are the things that are built into the system that people don't ordinarily know about. But back to John Denver. Well, then why were they saying he did? The guy that built the airplane that he bought decided to run the gasoline valve control just outside the cockpit, within reach, but outside the cockpit, because that builder, excuse me, thought it would be safer not to have a gas line running through the cockpit. And the inspector thought, you're right. But that particular valve, okay, is what you turned to go from one tank to the other. This airplane had two tanks.
Yeah.
Apparently, Denver took off on a tank that was almost empty. And the ways we know this is the line boy commented to him when he was out there, do you want me to fill that tank? No, I'm only going to fly for a short period of time. Don't worry about it. Well, what Denver didn't realize is when he got on up there and he realized he was too low, he was coming in for a landing, I guess a couple of 100 feet, maybe a half mile from the runway. Now he had to reach over his shoulder, just slightly outside the cockpit, and fumble around to turn that valve, a valve that should not have been required to be done at that time. He should have been up there on a full tank, or in level flight, flying not on a landing. He was an experienced pilot. He just got cocky or careless, or and he, as he reached over his left shoulder with his right arm to turn that valve. If anybody's out there sitting in their chair right now, put your feet on the ground like you got your feet on the pedals, and reach over your left shoulder with your right arm, and reach behind you, and you'll notice that your right foot, it's a little farther. Well, he pushed the right pedal more than the left pedal, which meant he induced a rudder deflection at 200 feet above the ground, which caused his airplane to flip over, and he didn't have enough altitude to recover. Now, immediately the media says, "Oh my goodness, it was a home built. They're unsafe. These guys that build airplanes don't know." That had nothing to do with the accident. That was a perfectly safe thing. A pilot got into an airplane and didn't know his airplane well enough to switch tanks and safely, and that's his fault. Now,
John, isn't it? That's media just hyping it off. But this is completely different to commercial flights, though, isn't it? Homemade and cowboys and stuff like that.
Oh, in a commercial flight, I can have a Manhattan in an airplane I build. I don't have anything alcoholic for 2 days before I fly. So, it's just, Paul. It's educational. It was a lot of fun to do. It is really a neat experience, because when you're all done with it, frankly, it's like showing off for the girls when you were in high school. You're doing something that not everybody does. And it's a kick. The first time I landed my airplane at Oshkosh, because I fly into the air show and land on this little airfield that Chris will tell you all about that. And I've got videos of it that I can send you. I let out the biggest war whoop you ever heard. Now nobody in the world heard me because the cockpit was closed. But when you spend 7 years building something and then just flew it into the world's biggest air show, um, it's
very cool.
It's a kick. It's a kick.
Yeah. Photos, John. Couldn't you share your photos of you in the plane for people who are listening on YouTube?
Well, sure. I can send Paul whatever he wants.
Yeah, you send me some photos. We'll put them there.
For right now, this is the first airplane I built.
Wow.
And
that took you 7 years, that one?
Oh, that one took me about 3 years. That's the one with the Volkswagen on it. It's a wood airplane made out of popsicle sticks, and wood. It's covered with like a linen, and those were the days when the kids were little, and it's painted with barn paint. Okay, yeah, and it's got a 2180 VW on it. 2180 for folks out there that might know about their VWs. So that particular one, I finished it that far, and a guy came along by the hangar and offered me so much money for it. I never flew it. I got it that far. He wanted to buy it, and he offered me so much money for it. As I said, the kids were little, and I just said, well, okay, if you're going to put a horse head in my bed, I will go ahead and sell it. Yeah, and I did, and then I bought another one, and then the next one I bought was this one. This is me at Oshkosh in 1999. As you can see, I'm a lot younger there. But that was I'm like the Three Little Pigs. The first one I built.
You made that.
Yeah. The second one is it's made out of metal and chromoly steel. I don't know if in Britain you guys race stock cars and stuff, but chromoly steel tubing is very sturdy, and this particular airplane had some metal on the wings and some canvas. I'm sorry. One of the reasons I had to quit flying is I now have tremors and I'm shaking here holding the photo. But there I am at 40 behind that airplane. I entered that in the contest because they have judging, and I took second. But I took second, but the guy that took first had built 6 airplanes, and frankly, was doing it almost professionally, and so forth. Now, I had a buddy of mine from high school who was in the auto body business. I made a deal with him to paint it. So, because I didn't know how to paint, and I didn't want. So one of the reasons it looks so damn good is he can cover up all of my mistakes with a good paint job.
Yeah, but it's not like a bit of home DIY, is it? I mean, like you're literally getting into something that you've made. I know you think but so you couldn't be any more invested in it, could you? You think that's on the line?
Let's put it this way: when you know you're the one that's going to fly it, and you haven't flown that kind of an airplane ever before, and nobody else is going to get in it and fly it for you, an attitude of, well, that's just good enough, is not the proper attitude. And believe me, you don't do that. I mean, I remember when I started on that one, I had to order sheets of aluminum, and you get what we call in the law analysis paralysis. I look at the print, then I'd look at the drill, and I'd look back at the print. I was scared to death to put a hole in that metal that I just paid a lot of good money for, And you get over that, and pretty soon, and as I said earlier, it's like eating an elephant. What you do, one sub-assembly, one part, then you put that aside. You do another sub-assembly, and then you mate those two assemblies, and before you know it, and you go through the plans, and they help you out with the steps, and what you simply do is you try to do the best job you can, and if you get stuck, or you're not quite clear on what the prints are telling you, or whatever, you can call the manufacturer of the kit, and most of them are more than happy, which is part of the process. When you buy it, you make sure that you buy it from somebody that's going to back up their product and answer the phone. And in this case, this particular airplane here, the second one, was called a Titan Tornado. It was made. Yep, the manufacturer of this kit
Wow.
was from northeast Ohio. Forgotten the name of the little town, but and when I could call them, I worked through a dealer. I could call them, and they'd be most happy to get on the phone and walk you through whatever you were stuck on. Um, and if I really wanted to, I could have called the guys down at the EAA office and talked to them. It's everybody that has a trade knows that if you're at a party, you could sit there all night and nobody will talk to you. But if some other guy is there and has the same trade, you two are going to get along. You're going to be talking all night long. So you call these people, they're waiting for that call. They want to talk to somebody about their product. They're happy to help you. I mean,
Can I ask what, like, if you don't mind me asking, what would one of those kits cost?
well, every airplane's different. And we're talking about, I bought that back in 1998.
Right.
So, we won't get political, but obviously things have changed. Let's put it this way. Well, that particular one, I think I had about 20 grand in the kit. Okay. But that's why, on this last airplane that I built, which is this one, here I am flying in Oshkosh.
Wow.
Blows my mind.
That airplane, and here it is. Here it is with my brother and my friend. We would bring it down to Oshkosh because it took me 7 years to build this one.
Yeah.
My wife had breast cancer, and so there was a life got seriously in the way during the construction of this airplane.
Yeah.
And we got through that happily, by the way. But the bottom line is, we also wanted to put a Volkswagen engine on this airplane. And so my brother is an engineer out in California, so we built without going down a rabbit hole, there were all sorts of modifications we made to the Volkswagen, which wasted 3 years. And at the end of the day, I just couldn't, I was at a chicken or the egg problem. We put electronic ignition and fuel injection on it, and that meant you had to program it with a laptop. And we could program it up to about 3,200 RPMs. And at 3,200 RPMs on the runway, the airplane wanted to take off. But we didn't know what numbers were necessary to program it above 3,200 RPMs, which meant that I would be taking off and not know what the engine needed in terms of the instructions. And you couldn't do it on the ground because when you tether the airplane to a telephone pole and run in, it creates a different dynamic. The airplane isn't moving. So you were at a chicken or the egg. And my wife went out on the last day on the Volkswagen. My wife said, I know you're up to something. And she followed me out. I didn't know it. And I started it up and it was backfiring and just, miserable. And frankly, I was not crazy about going up, and I was going to crow hop it, meaning I'd take it off about 10 feet above the runway. And what? And when I came over, she said, that's it. You're not flying this thing anymore. I heard it backfire, and I tried to use whatever husbands can do to be reasonable. And she said, there are no 68-year-old test pilots that I'm aware of. And so the fun part about that was I wanted to get a Rotax engine, which was very expensive, but didn't want to spend the money.
Yeah.
So she made me spend the money on that Rotax, so rather than fly that stupid Volkswagen. So if there's any guys out there think in aviation, you can sometimes put one over on them, at any event. But so I got and that's that. I bought the engine from the dealer of the kit because he could get Rotax engines. And then I took a trip down to the factory, hauled my airplane on a trailer, and installed the engine there because I didn't know anything about that engine. And I paid them, but they assigned a guy to me, and I was there for 3 weeks. By that time, I had retired, and he was whenever I needed to say, okay, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do here, I could call over. His name was Bill, and say, Bill, come over here and I did it. This is what I did. Do you think this? Yeah. He said, that's fine. Or no, you should do this. And so I had a factory installation without paying the factory to do it.
So you've because this is astounding, isn't it? You know, you think I have no mechanical interest. I mean, I guess you've always had an interest, but that's not been your background. And here you are building a flipping aircraft. It's just
Well, yeah, Paul, that was for me.
that you would get it.
For me, as a personal experience, I enjoyed it because it was so different. I did trial work, and you're under a lot of you're under the eye, you're under the pressure, and so forth. Uh, and uh, and so it was relaxing for me. I loved the building part. The
Yeah.
flying part was great, but actually the construction, the building was as much fun for me. Now the other guys would say I hated the building thing. I couldn't wait till it was done, and I wanted to fly. You know, everybody's different. Because it was so different from what I did for a living, I found it recreationally relaxing and fun.
John, didn't you say the first time you took off after building it, though? You said just the very first time you take off, it was a bit of a squeaky bum moment.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I tell that story now. It's fun to tell the story. At the time, it was one of those things that you weren't too proud of. My wife was going to visit family in Pittsburgh. I was finished with the yellow airplane there, the Titan, and I now had to test fly it. Um, so I thought, oh, good, she's going to be gone. I don't have to have her hovering around me, worried about me test flying it. So I went down to where I had the airplane, and I started prepping it. And I thought to myself, I should take the wheel pants off because the first time I land this thing is probably not going to be the greatest landing. I just finished painting this. I don't want to scuff them all up. So I can tell you this story now because I have to tell it inside out. There was a dad and three boys that used to come by my hangar and would come in, and I'd talk to them, and the boys were all interested in what I was doing and so forth. Very pleasant experience with them. Well, they happened to be there, and of course came down and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm going to test fly it." And they engaged me in a lot of conversation. And I had to take the wheel pants off, and there's a nut on the end of the axle that you have to undo to get the wheel pants off. The wheel pants are those cup-shaped things that go over and make the wheel more aerodynamic. Well, if I'd have known that I was doing it, it wouldn't happen. But after it happened, I remembered that while I was talking, one of the youngsters was asking me a bunch of questions, and I walked over to my workbench and put the nut on the workbench. Forgot to reinstall the nut after I took the wheel pants off. So basically, I had my right wheel. Let's see which one it was. Yeah, my right wheel without a nut on the end of the axle to hold the wheel on, and didn't know it, So I go out and I'm out there warming it up, and I did a little bit of the taxing, and on the ground it didn't come right off. Well, down the way in another hangar was the fellow that flew the helicopter for the hospital. He had a hangar there, and he had his helicopter. He had his airplane sitting out in front of his hangar, and it had a radio in it. Well, apparently, when I took off, I remember the airplane sort of shook. Well, when you take off for the first time in an airplane you just built, it's a moment of truth when you push that throttle forward. And I don't want to be too verbal about it, but the whole airplane sort of shook because the wheels spun off, and it caused a vibration. Well, the first thing I did was look at the wings. I thought, geez, what was that? Well, they were just fine. And it didn't occur to me to look down at my wheels. So all of a sudden I get this radio call. His name was Kelly. And I said, "Oh, Kelly, how nice of you to call me." And he says, "Well, John, I'm delighted to be for your first radio call, but," he said, "I don't think you're going to be real happy about what I'm going to tell you." He said, "The boys were watching you take off, and they saw your wheel fall off." And I mean, at that moment, you can imagine the adrenaline and stuff. And I said, "I don't remember what did I say?" And he said, "Well, it was something like, oh shit." So 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 anyway, I thought, now what the hell am I going to do? I not only have never flown this thing. I've never landed it. Now I've got one wheel to land it on. And so I remember, I didn't know at what speed it stalls at, meaning what speed do you bring it in at, and finally the wings quit flying. So I took it up to about 3,000 feet and started practicing stalls so that at least I'd know that, and then thought about my strategy. So I thought, well,
I mean, you're quite calm during all of this.
well, there's no place to go, Paul. You're straight. I do remember this. I thought, well, it was a pusher airplane. The engine's in the back.
Mm.
So the one thing I didn't want to do is to land the airplane and have it turn over, because then I'd have a hot engine over the gas tank, and the gas tank is right behind me.
Mm.
So, and if I was dazed or knocked out, I'd be in a big fix. So I tightened my seatbelts, and then I thought, well, the airport that I was at was a little uncontrolled, no tower. So you basically tell everybody what you're going to do. And I decided I didn't want to land on the concrete runway because it would create sparks.
Yeah.
And not to mention ruining my shiny new airplane that I just finished. And that in hindsight, I was angry that I had allowed this to happen. I wasn't really, honest to God, when I look back, I wasn't really scared. I was happy my wife wasn't there, I'll tell you that. But anyway.
That was in proper fear then.
Well, if I lived through the accident, I'd be killed right away after that. Anyway, so I went down I decided I was going to land across the runway because I thought I could stop the airplane before the concrete runway would appear. And that way I'd be in the grass. And they had a grass runway that ran 90 degrees to the concrete runway anyway. So I practiced that, and then the funny thing that happened is I kept talking to Kelly on the radio, and I said, well, I think I'm going to do one more practice, and then I think I'll bring it in. And pilot's being superstitious. He didn't say, do you think I should call the emergency people? He just said, do you think I should call somebody? And I said, yeah, you probably should. Well, this happened up in a little town where I had my lake home, and Shadow, Wisconsin. And when you flew down the grass strip and then you banked to turn around and come in again, you could see right down Main Street.
Mm.
And unbeknownst to me, he sent one of the kids down to Kelly, and Kelly sent one of the kids to go get their dad's cell phone and call. And apparently all they said is there's an airplane that's going to crash here at the airport. So by the time I banked and looked down Main Street, everything Shano owned was coming down the street. 2 fire engines, a couple of ambulances, the fire chief. I mean, it was like Mayberry with Barney Fife waiting to shoot his bullet. There was a big chance to get to the fire. Well, I thought, oh my God, I don't want to land into that. So I landed and just cross controlled the airplane and kept on the one, just like a wheelbarrow, just kept on the one wheel as long as I could. Chris knows what I'm talking about, cross controlling it. And finally, you lose enough energy where the bare axle finally had to drop, and but we were slow enough at that point. The airplane spun around, and there I sat with my balls in my throat, thinking, "Okay, I lived through this," and then there's some funny. I don't know how much people want to hear about this, but it's a fun.
Yeah, do it.
It's a fun story to tell. My daughter had come with her boyfriend just beforehand, and they had gone down to the Perkins, the place to make sandwiches and stuff down 2 blocks down. And when the fire trucks came by and going to the airport, they weren't finished yet, but she got up and told her boyfriend, I just know my dad has done something stupid. I got to go up and see what's going on at the airport. So she's on the way up, and the guys get there, and I'm sitting in the airplane, unstrapping and so forth. And I tell you, when the guy came up to me, and there was a look of disappointment in his eyes that he wasn't there to put out a fire or pick up a body or something. And since there was no damage to the airplane and no damage to the airport, I didn't have to file any kind of report with the FAA, so I dodged a bullet there. But the other funny thing that then happened is that was it for me. I mean, I had just gone through this. I was shaky. I was tired. I was nervous. I was, it's like how you feel after you get out of an automobile accident or something. So the two boys that were there with their dad, they got on their they all went down and they found the wheel. They went and got the wheel, which I appreciated, but they come back and say, they say, hey, here's the wheel. You can go back up again. You can finish the test flight. Right there. No. Just let's put it on the axle and I'll taxi back into the hangar. And so now I'm trying to get back in the airplane. I get back in the airplane and I climb in and my seatbelt won't fit. And I thought, what the hell? Do you bloat when you have this kind of an episode? Does your body expand or something? And I realized that I had tightened my seatbelt so much when I had all that adrenaline going to make sure that if I tipped the airplane over, I had cinched it, that it was like 8 inches of seatbelt that I now that I had to let out to get back in the airplane. So the only thing left in that story is when I didn't tell my wife about it, but she heard about it. So the next week, there's a tavern right across the street, a pub right across the street. And I was flying off the hours. Before you're allowed to take a passenger, you have to fly off 40 hours alone. You can't take a passenger until you safely fly to test the airplane and your skills. So I was hungry. I landed and taxied up to the street there because it's a little country airport. Get out, walk across the street, and here's the bartender in there. It's lunchtime, and he's at the bar, wiping the bar off, and so I walk up and I said, I'd like a little lunch. What do you got for lunch? And he looks out the window. He says, "That's your yellow airplane there?" And I said, "Yeah, that's." He said, "Was that you last weekend?" And I said, "Yeah." And I thought, "Oh boy." And I said, "Yeah, that was me." He said, "Lunch is on us." He said, "Everybody in town came to the pub here because they wanted to see what the hell was happening at the airport." He said, "Lunch for you is free."
This is when Kate bought him the flight simulator and said, you can't fly anymore.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, so for all of the lovely people that are listening to this baloney, and I've been talking about safety and all that, no matter what you do, something can happen. But I will say this, I was not a rookie pilot. I already had about 400 hours, not in that airplane. And if there's one thing that happens, I think just about to every human being, if you have the opportunity to react, you get real visceral. You get lean and mean when you realize that you are now in control of the situation that that is life threatening. You would be amazed how focused you can get. And I was totally focused for that 20 minutes or so.
Yes.
So, and you think about what you're going to do. Most of us don't have that opportunity when we have an accident to say, "Oh, I know I'm going to face something else." So anyway, that's a long-winded story about that my partner Chris had to bring up.
You think there was any trigger warnings there, Paul? If there is
only all the way through. Yeah. Yeah, there will be a few people nervous for that. I mean, when you think about it, you're very invested. You make it yourself. You're up in it. I mean, I always say that with pilots generally. You've got skin in the game, but so much more when you've made it yourself. Every single rivet, everything you've done. So I was curious. When you make, because the rule with commercial aviation, there's no single point of failure. Is it the same with a homemade general aviation type aircraft that you did? Is it the same such redundancy?
Wherever you can, when you're building it, I could bore you to tears and show you several places in the construction of the airplane we just talked about, the yellow one, the Titan, where we went beyond what the manufacturer suggested. They had tested it, but when you do that, you even check with them, because airplanes are built so that certain load-bearing intersections are engineered to carry those loads. And if you beef up one spot, all that means is you could be sending those stresses to another spot
Yeah.
that is not engineered to take that. So you don't make modifications unless they're approved by the people who designed the airplane.
Mm.
And that is a bugaboo for guys that build their own. They think, oh gosh, I'll just put an extra block of wood in here and glue it up and stick it in here. And now you don't realize that may have transferred the stress from that location to another one that's not designed to handle it.
Hey, John, this might be putting people off building their own plane.
Well, I think we're here for the truth. The fact of the matter is, if you're going to build your own plane, you're going to investigate it thoroughly. But I think what the message that I would have is there are resources that would enable you to have a lot of fun, and analyze that you bought the proper kit. The reason I bought the kit, my third airplane, the Kolb, that design has been around for 52 years this year, I think. That airplane has never had a structural failure. In other words, no wing has ever broken, Now, that doesn't mean that somebody hasn't built a Kolb and been hurt in it. You can't say that. But that's pilot error. I don't want to buy and put all that time and effort into building an airplane that I know has a possibility of breaking. Yeah. I don't, that kind of logic just doesn't fly with me.
No.
And so if you do your research well, you find out that it's on the approved list, you use whatever resources. I have a friend that likes to say all available means, and it's Chris's favorite saying when he's, taking his ship and running it up on the rocks. He apparently didn't use all of the means that he should have. But anyway, bottom line is it's a very safe thing to do. And frankly, if you look at that silly story I just told, there I was with one wheel. The airplane got me down.
Yeah.
I mean, and because you had some experience in flying, you shouldn't climb in one of these things inexperienced, no matter what. And if you don't, usually it's a guy that has flying experience, but he may not have any experience in this particular type of airplane.
Yeah.
And so what you do is you try to go and find somebody that's got one, or you get into the one that's as close to it in terms of flying characteristics as possible, and fly it. And then, if there's that.
Will you make another one? Can you make another one, John? Or is that it?
I'm too old now. I'm getting too old now. Now that's why actually, I've got familial tremors. I shake. And so I sold this last one in 2023 at Oshkosh. A guy had seen me fly there for a couple of years in that airplane and put a horse head in my bed again. And so I sold it to him. But and that's when my wife, knowing that I was going to suck my thumb and whine and cry and be crabby, and she heard about getting this, and that's why I have a curved screen, and I have the Microsoft Flight Simulator. And Chris, how many airplanes can we fly now? I think I've got over 50 different airplanes that if I wanted to start them up in the computer, I can fly them. And
is that sort of meeting the need for you now?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. With Chris, it's like everything else. It's fun to share something that you treasure.
So how did that start then? Because you obviously met drinking, started chatting. Let's just call it what it is, right? You've drinking down by the swimming pool.
Paul, he sanitizes that. I was sitting there minding my own business on the side of the pool, and here this guy's out in the middle of the pool talking rubbish with some other Brit about rugby. I was curious because not a thing they were saying made any sense to me. So I had to go out and investigate. I merely went out there, and my wife was concerned that I would be dehydrated by the time I got to the middle of the pool. So I brought a libation along with me. In any event, I got there, and then they told me that they were talking about rugby. Well, we all know that rugby isn't really football. American football is football. That's rugby. And so he's explained to me rugby. And
Yeah, I might have to leave the call now, but carry on.
yeah. Anyway, so we got to know each other a little better. He has a lovely wife, and so do I. And so we just, I don't know. It was like we knew each other for 30 years. I was very proud of the fact that I knew a fellow that served his country for 24 years. In this day and age, there's not many that are that dedicated and true, and I compliment him, and I'm very proud to know him. I I had to joke that I said, boy, if we'd have met 250 years ago, I'd have been hiding behind a tree with my Kentucky rifle, and you'd have been standing out there in the middle of the field with a red coat on, and I would have had to yell, Chris, get your ass down. I'm going to shoot you if you don't take that stupid red coat off and hide behind that rock over there. So, time changes, time goes on.
We just clicked, me, Claire, John, and Kate, and
Well, he enjoys
great vacation.
He's got a real, this sounds like a mutual admiration society for which I'm sorry, but he does have a part of him. He loves to do new things, learn new things, and not just superficially, because he's become on the simulator, he's become a good pilot. He's doing a great job. And it's a lot of fun. And we just finished a flight last. We were in Australia. We're on the north coast of Australia. We've been all over the world. You can set up flights everywhere, anywhere.
I'm doing when I go to Australia in March. We flew the route that I'm going down in a camper van and stuff like that. So, but Lovefly created this. It was destiny, really. To
See, I don't know about that. What are you talking about? What is that? Lovefly? What is that? I don't know about that.
Lovefly. Sorry, did I say Lovefly?
I don't know what you said.
So Lovefly, our community, just help me go to Dominican Republic, and in turn I met you, John. And next minute we come and visit you. You come and visit us in UK.
Yeah.
Do 200 hours on the flight simulator, and just it creates so many great memories.
Well,
That's what you've done, the Lovefly.
Well, that's credit where it's due. So I'm going to cut in here because if you get John talking again, I won't get another word in. I mean, with respect, sir. The thing with Chris is it was your determination, mate, because you gave us this thing about overcoming the fear, being a bit like you compared it to it being a marathon, breaking it down, all of that great wisdom you gave. So that was down to your determination, your background, and then you just directed it towards the fear of flying. And I think so. You've got to take a load of credit for that. I mean, we were lucky to be part of it more.
I didn't know any of that until this phone. Yeah, I didn't know that the backstory. I didn't know the backstory.
Well, we went to London on Saturday, and I met a lot of the Loveflyers. So I've got to thank Louise for setting that up for us. And I met Melissa, Debbie, and Jamie, my old crew, who helped me so much, and met a lot of new people. And my favourite, Pete Higgins and his wife Janet, I met for the first time. A lovely couple. I had to get that in before it finishes, but it was brilliant to meet them. And we're planning on going on small trips again, maybe to Dublin or mentioned Barcelona or something. Or
it's been a lot of fun for me. I'm not a world traveler. When Chris will say something like, "Boy, I was really grafting today." Now, to an American, graft means corruption, bribery, theft. That it's not something you brag about. I said, what did you say? And, I grafted. Then he had to explain to me. So stuff like that happens all the time. It makes it charming. What did Churchill say? We are two peoples divided by the English language, or something to that effect.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's been fun, and thank you for letting us do this, Paul. I would really want to share a story. He's such a great friend of mine.
Yeah, it's been delightful. I would be happy to send you some supplemental stuff, and if there's another subject that I can help, I don't want to be tooting the horn. I'm just a regular guy that had a hobby and enjoyed it,
Yeah,
And-
just a regular guy who could build airplanes. Yeah, I know a little bit about that.
No, honest, it's well, like I said, there are some of the fellows that knew me that saw my rec room and said, "I ain't getting in that airplane." But I give my wife a lot of credit. The two airplanes I built, she first time I flew off the 40 hours. Then that's another thing. The FAA has strict rules on what you have to do before you put a passenger in it. But she happily was a great pass. She's a brave girl.
So what about, yeah, I mean, so that's really reassuring, just so people are listening now, so the nervous flyer will be listening to this, and this is what they'll be thinking. Right. So there's airports around the world where people who've made their own aeroplanes can be flying around with no control whatsoever. So that's what they'll be thinking. So just think it's a little bit of a sense of that.
No, that is not accurate.
That's true though, isn't it, Chris? That's what that some people they're looking for.
Okay, well let's be clear on that. Now, first of all, you can have lawless people that will do whatever they want to do, but if you are a responsible pilot following the rules, there are areas that designated aviation areas, and so, for example, any airport with a control tower, while that control tower is active, draw a circle with about 5 miles around that. And if you enter that area, you have to, before you enter, call the control tower and say, Appleton Tower, this is Cherokee 5551 Foxtrot. I'm 10 miles west inbound for landing. Winds inactive, and then they'll come back to you and say, Cherokee 5551 Foxtrot, you're cleared to land runway 225 or whatever it is. So I have to talk to them. And if they don't tell me I'm cleared to land, I can't enter that area.
Yeah.
So, and that's good up to 3,000 feet above the ground. So, and the reason that rule is in place is a big passenger airplane with 100 people on it, they don't want to be flying into an area where some cowboy is in there, doing whatever. So that's simply not an accurate thing. And if you're at an uncontrolled airport, which many of these small airports are, they don't have control towers, then you become the control tower. So when I'm 10 miles out from a small field, I will say, Watertown Municipal, this is Cherokee 5551 Foxtrot. I'm 10 miles southwest, inbound for landing, winds inactive, meaning I want to know what the winds are. And if somebody's listening to the radio, can you tell me what runway they're landing on? There isn't anybody designated to list on radio, but maybe there's some other air guy on the airport that's sitting in his airplane. And so he's tuned to the same frequency because he wants to take off at that airport. He'll come back and say, airplane calling Watertown Municipal. Everybody's using runway 25. Okay. So now I'm 10 miles out. I know that 25, I have a map. I've done my planning. I look and see what the runways are active, and so forth. So there's all kinds of rules of the road, just like when you learn to drive, that apply to aviation. And so you should, if people are abiding by the rules, and we all know not everybody does. But
nervous.
Well, I mean,
John, would you?
Life is a risk. I mean, I could walk out the front door today and slip on the ice. And by the way, I'm in Wisconsin. We got, what is it? It's about negative 11 C right now.
Minus 11.
Yeah, I think so. I got. All right. Yeah, that's another.
I think we're up to past the hour now, aren't we? I did say we had an hour or something.
Okay. Well, let's just sort of wrap up and say, I think this has been great, and it's been really inspiring to to hear your two story and how you two met, and the fact that for you, Chris, as well, that you're now flying together, you're learning how to fly. I love that. I thought of you in the two different countries flying around together. That's brilliant.
It is brilliant.
We don't have to continue, but Paul, I learned this weekend, my Christmas time, and some of my grandkids were here over the weekend, and they said, Grampy, why don't we sign you up for Twitch? And I don't know how to use it totally yet, but I can do a flight on Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I have a Twitch station now. That means that you could tune in to Twitch as soon as I learn how to send out the invite, and you could watch, and you can use texting to ask questions of me, and I can respond to you verbally. Twitch allows me to speak to you, but you would have a Twitch, TWITCH. You familiar with that at all?
I've heard
What it does, you tune it into them. And you would literally be flying along with me, and if you had questions, you could ask. So, in another week, or probably in January, I'm going to try to set up a station.
Yeah, do that. Well, Chris,
And
perhaps put something in the Facebook group.
And if I send you the message, I would be delighted to show folks what it'll be an inexpensive way to see what the simulator does. They could just download the free app and tune into the station. So
one night we all flew. There was 12 airplanes setting off from one airport, and we all had mics, and we were all talking to people, and there were retired commercial pilots and everything, and we were all talking about which one we were going to land at, then take off, and having
they use Discord to talk to each other, but Microsoft Flight Simulator will allow you to do those group flights. What this is, Chris, this Twitch thing. Well, I should talk to you off of.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, you'll work it out, and most of what you just said's gone over my head, but that's not unusual. And I talk to guests. That sounds great. That sounds like a really good way.
Paul, Google MSFS, Microsoft Flight Simulator, and Twitch, and I think there's some stuff there that if your audience is interested, and I need to just update it, but I'd be delighted to just let you know when we're flying up, and I'll try the Twitch thing.
That sounds
Come fly with us if they want to.
Yeah, exactly. Fly with Chris and John. I mean,
Wednesday and Sunday night.
There you go. I'll talk to you. There are technical issues that you can't. You and I, never mind. We'll talk about it.
Hey, listen, folks. Let's wrap up. That's been great. It's been really, really interesting. I love your relationship, and I think that's it. I like the way that this is all started.
Well, we came to
great stories, brilliant.
Well, I got to say, it wasn't I have yet to meet a Brit I didn't like.
Oh, what can introduce?
I haven't met Harry and Megan yet, but other than that, and God, what's his name? Who's the?
No, we don't mention him. Don't mention him though. Don't mention him. Or no politics. No, that's it. Let him wrap up, John. Let's wrap up.
Wrap us up,
John. Well, this is my closing statement. Okay, thank you very much. It's been great. I love the stories, and if anybody is worried, please listen to this, because you think, particularly the messages at the end, John just mentioned about all the sort of safety, FAA stuff, and all that, and and this is serious stuff. So although it's fun, there are some serious elements to it as well, in terms it still has to meet the same sort of standards for general aviation. Awesome, absolutely awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for.
Thanks, Paul.
I was honored to be asked. To be honest, I'm nervous.
Well, it was. I'm really good, really good. I'm going to stop recording now, all right?
Yes.